Welcome back, One Love family. It's your boy Seth Garu Baxter with Maker's Bar, where we are creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. One of those leaders is here today with us, and I must say it's an extreme pleasure and honor for me to have him with us in continuing our theme of Black excellence, which he already had me laughing about. I am pleased to introduce actor, comedian extraordinaire Christopher Akeem. He's going to be here to talk about his journey into Hollywood, and not only his journey into Hollywood, but his comedic talents and his acting talents, and about giving pieces of his story and his origin for those of you who are out there. We're so glad to have you back and joining us with us today on Maker's Bar. Christopher Akeem, thank you, brother, for being with us today. How are you today?
I am so honored to be here, Guru. Thank you for having me. Thank you for considering me. And man, you're such a good guy. And for those of you who don't know, and why would you know, but we met at an event. We were talking about how life happens all around you, but sometimes you just find those connections with people, and you know that they are solid and real connections. You see the spirit in the other person, and brother, we had that instantaneously, and now here we are. So very honored and privileged to be here with you. And with
it's absolutely our pleasure to make this for our audience to have you here. And true, we did have that instant connection. And for me, what you radiated was a light. And Hollywood sometimes can be given the perception that everything is dimmed, but you were a light that was shining bright at the event, amongst other things. And we're absolutely pleased to have you here with us today. Absolutely pleased. It's my honor. Absolutely. So Christopher, tell us, where do you hail from? Tell us about your origin story. You come from where, and start from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. Immediately got snatched up and ripped out of Texas and got moved up to Minnesota, of all places. So I spent the majority of my life in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota area. And then I decided I got tired of the snow and the bipolar weather, which in turn affects people's moods. So, you know, a lot of bipolar people. And for anyone that is bipolar, it's not a diss. I'm just saying, I don't like to be around y'all too much, you know. When you're in a good place, hey, cool, we can hang out. When you're going through it, text me. Text me, you know. Don't dump your crap on me, you know. I mean, I will support you, but anyway, Minnesota, it wasn't the place for me, man. You know, I didn't know that until late in life, but I feel like everything that I experienced and went through there prepared me for being out here in California, and not just being in California, in particular, more specifically, being in Hollywood and being mixed in with this entertainment culture and the people out here. So I feel so blessed for everything that I've been through, my trauma, my dark times. You know, sometimes you got to go through it to get to it. And where I'm at now, I am in such a great place in my life. And that doesn't mean that I've got all the money that I want, all the material, or even the house that I want necessarily. But again, those wants are minimal to being thankful for what I do have, you know. So I feel blessed to have myself right now, most importantly, you know.
Absolutely.
At this time in my life, I feel like I'm a whole person, you know, not fragmented, you know. You were saying,
tell us. Yeah. Feeling whole is important, and it's relative to what my next question is. What brought you into the understanding that acting and comedy was going to be your vocation?
So I feel like, again, one thing I should say is I'm adopted. So
adopted also, brother.
You're adopted also?
Yes, I'm one of 18, Kat.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
My parents weren't that bold. They only snatched up 4. And then like, oh, we done. We are done. Especially with this one talking about me, like, oh, he he about 16 of himself, you know. He about 16 people in one. That's amazing. See, again, just
Yes.
vibes and connections. So then,
Spiritual vibes, spiritual
yeah.
vibes.
So then maybe you can relate to the identity search, trying to not only be grounded within your own family, but not having some of those key pieces that other people who have their biological family around them and grew up with their biological parents. I'm not saying that those are always the best experience for everybody. So for some people it is, but there's something about being adopted where you have these degrees of separation between um, who you are and what you're here to do. When you have your biological mirror, let me say your biological mirror, like your mother, your father, your grand, your grandma, your grandpa, um, you can see things that you recognize in yourself. There's that mirror there, like, oh, I get this from my mama, or I get this from my daddy, or I'm like my grandma this way, or I'm like my cousin this way. When you don't have that, when you don't have those emulations or that mirror, like I said, it really puts you into an introspective place where you've got to figure out a lot of stuff on your own. You've got to choose to identify in certain ways, and so for me, comedy has always been a part of that for me because people, especially when you're young, people are quick to judge and to say this about you. I mean, kids can be some of the cruelest people.
Absolutely.
Like I always want to say that I was forced to be black, and by that I mean it's not that I didn't know I was black, because I always did. I grew up around a lot of white folks, a lot of
Well,
Caucasians.
if you don't mind, Chris, may I ask you, were your adoptive parents what, Caucasian?
My adopted parents are Caucasian. So
There you
y'all just got a gem out of me that if you use it against me, I don't care. I'm right. There's nothing to use. I've got the best parents in the world, man. They're very supportive and love. Now, ask me this, 30 years ago, I might have not felt that way, But again, that was about me and where I was at in my journey. The matter of fact is that I grew up in a very loving home, very family oriented home. Yeah.
I did too. I was blessed that way. I had wonderful parents, and I can't tell you enough. And everyone who knows me knows when I talk about my parents, it's my parents who I don't call them my adopted parents; they're just my parents, and
Right.
a loving home.
Exactly.
Crazy stories and all kind of stuff. Had the most incredible parents, and I actually had the blessing of finding my biological parents as well. And so when you talk, you did too. Oh,
Yeah.
dig it. I'd love for us to get into that if you don't mind sharing, whatever you feel comfortable to share.
Yeah.
But fantastic. And I feel so much the blessing of having great parents who raised me, as well as wonderful biological parents. My biological mother and I have a great relationship. My biological father, he's since passed away, but before he did, and he was Caucasian as well. So interestingly enough, and I'm of the same mindset as you. If you guys don't like it, it's okay.
It is okay.
Yes. And yes, and it was a blessing to have the blessing of knowing both sides of my family. But I'd like to explore a little bit more. So in growing up in your family, how did you come into some of your comedic talents and skills? Were there things in your family that was raising you that you identified with, that you found funny, or what was it as a coping mechanism? Give us a little insight if you don't mind.
I really think it was a coping mechanism, but also I just think I'm naturally witty.
You are.
So I've been told. But looking back, man, it's just like I think it it probably was a coping mechanism to some degree, because again, when you experience that cruelty or that judgment or people saying this about you, they don't even know you, but they can look at your dynamic or look at your situation. I mean, even just getting razzed on for having white parents, and um, how do you deal with that? I mean, what do you cry? Do you get mad? Do you fight? And I've done all of that stuff. But at some point you just kind of when you realize that that's other people's problems. And not only that, the way to disarm people sometimes is just by making it light, by cracking a joke about it, by being witty, by being more clever than the negativity or the negative statements or the judgments that are being cast at you. And again, for me, that was just like at an early age, and it's just become a part of who I am. I find humor in everything, much to the chagrin of of family members when I go to funerals or something, because are y'all crying and stressed out and this is that. I'm going to be talking shit and I'm going to be making jokes, and not in an insensitive way, but well, once in a while. But no, ultimately, it's just I feel like there's so much joy to be experienced in life, to be snatched out of life,
Yes.
and I want to have it, man. I love it. It feels good. It's my drug. It is my drug. I love being high on life. I love cracking. I love laughing. I mean, and naturally for us, laughter, it's medicine. It really is. It releases endorphins and changes your whole perspective on things. And so that is something that I have just embraced as a part of who I am, and just try to milk all the humor out of life that I can, man.
If you don't mind, I wanted to explore a little bit. Were you able to develop a relationship with your biological parents?
So, when I was about 18, big time of finding yourself and, coming into your manhood. And I was lost, man. I was lost in terms of, again, some of those pieces that you get in a biological family. You get a rite of passage, whether it's just something traditional in your family or just even the affirmation and confirmation from, again, your biological family, who they've known you and they see you when they see you go through this journey. And then whatever traditions or whatever experiences have culminated into that acceptance that, oh, you're a man now, or you're coming into this. I didn't really have that. I didn't really have that. So for me, I started searching, of course. I mean, I always had questions, man. Being adopted, you always have those questions. I would say,
yes,
probably 10 times more question than the average person just growing up. Yeah. And so when you're 18, you can begin that search to have access and find out, because the records were sealed. So I reached out to the adoption agency. It was actually Catholic Charities was the agency. And I wrote letters to my biological mother and my biological father. They located them. They sent the letters to each of them. And I got responses from both of them, actually. It was probably about 19 at the time that happened. And I got this beautiful 17-page handwritten letter from my biological mother, explaining a lot of things, just elated and so happy that I reached out and that she had been wanting to find me. And it was just beautiful. On the other hand, well, let me back up just real quick a little bit. Both of them, when the agency reached out to them, said that they wanted to have contact with me. So there's that choice from the biological parents to decide if they want to have contact. I have an adopted sister. I have two adopted sisters as well. And for my older sister, her mother didn't want to have anything to do with her. So that was a piece of her journey that she never got to experience. And it's funny because she's a really solid person now, and really, she really knows herself really well. And she was able to do that. For me, I needed more pieces of the puzzle. So both my biological parents wanted to have contact with me. I wrote my letters, got the one back from my mother, deep, heartfelt. I could instantly recognize myself in her words and in her spirit. However, my biological father sent me back 2.5 paragraph page quoting Nelson Mandela's speech about us fearing what we are and the light that we have. And he was just kind of more indirect and said, I think my letter was so heartfelt and passionate, and I had all these questions, and I think that probably overwhelmed him. So he went from wanting to have contact to just kind of giving me like, well, glad to know you're okay. And I don't know why an adoption agency thinks that I'm the answer to all of your identity questions, but I want to encourage you and leave you with this, and left me a quote of Nelson Mandela. So that kind of hit me in the heart. Again, it was just a door slamming in my face. Of course, I took it personal, especially after him saying he wanted to have a relationship or at least communication. I wrote them both back. Didn't receive another letter from him. Got another letter back from my mom. But then life started happening, and I didn't feel I was in the position or the mentality. Again, I'm 18, 19, going through my life journey, started college, seeking my identity pieces elsewhere, connecting with different parts of my culture and community, and finding myself there. And it wasn't until I was actually 26 years old that I actually met my biological mother for the first time, who was down in Texas. And that was quite an experience. I look like both of them. I could see myself in both of them, but I definitely have her spirit and her passion, and she was also very witty. So she got my jokes instantly because I'd come in there cracking jokes, and that I met some half siblings of mine. On her side, I have three half sisters and a half brother. So I got to meet 3 out of the 4 of them, and we started having communication and relationship. And I visited her a couple of times. Unfortunately, it kind of came to the point in the relationship. I want to say to you, because you had mentioned that you had great relationships with your biological parents, which
Yes.
Awesome. I love that for you.
The biological father, he was a little hardcore. He was good. I felt receptive. Well, he first said, you would have thought he was black by this answer, but he said, well, let's get a DNA test. And
oh, damn. Like, bruh, what? Oh, not that. Just in case you ask me for anything. Like, boy, you hit me up for money or what?
And that was a little bit of his apprehension. Even how I first met him, when I first found him, I'd already had a great relationship with my biological mother. And as I was looking for him, I first got introduced to him through his current wife. And she said to me before, this is pre the DNA test, it was late at night when I had found him. And it was one of the kids I worked with, oddly enough, who found his address, hacked into it. And I was working with the youth group, and I was about 28, 29. And I just had on my desk, I was living in Van Nuys, California. And the kid that I was working with, they were getting ready to go off to college. And he said, "Oh, what's his name?" And I said, "Oh, it's my biological father." And he said, "Oh, have you found him yet?" I said, "No." He typed in, found his address. I called up right away, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, "I know who you are. He's told me about you." And so that's why I didn't expect when I spoke to her, she said, you'll probably give him a heart attack if you guys talk now. So, so, so it'll be better if you talk to him tomorrow.
Am I in the will? Just in case. Am I in the will? Is he going to leave me some money? Put him on the phone. Put him on the phone. Hey, Daddy. Oh no. Oh, no.
Christopher, you're going to make it.
Will, you know? Okay, go ahead.
Laugh too.
Oh,
man. Oh, man. So, oh, boy. So we spoke the next day, and he said, "Oh, so let's do a DNA test. I'm coming into Vegas." And he was in television, oddly enough. And
wow.
we met in Vegas and did a DNA test. And it was like, after we got the results back, he waited for a while, and then he said, "Hey, so what are we going to do with this?" I guess we should get to know each other. He said, "What are we going to do with this?" I said, "Well, I just had questions. I didn't want to interfere or anything." But he was very much a businessman, very different than my dad who raised me. But he was open to, because I had my son at the time, and he was open to us discussing. And up until his death, we had a relationship where he was very business minded, and I'm a creative, and I was not as business minded. So that was some of where we would have resistance in our relationship. But it was,
we had to schedule board meetings to talk to him. Make sure you put on your suit and tie, son.
Well,
fishing.
Right. Well, I got to tell you, when he saw me and I had dreadlocks, he was kind of, because he was conservative. He did do a double take. He said, "Do you need those things?"
Man,
for my dreadlocks.
How could he be conservative when he had a fine black woman that he was making love to? You got conservative now, huh? Yeah, all right. That's not what.
Don't say that, because she might see this video. She's gonna probably see this interview.
Sorry.
That's okay. She's cool. She's cool.
All joke.
Oh, Chris, you have me laughing
here. I did start off by saying that I use comedy as a coping mechanism, right? I did, right? There was that disclaimer that you're offended by what I'm saying. You won't be the first one. You know?
What? I tell you, he said, "Do you need those things?" I said, "Well, my dreadlocks are part of this because I've had them for a long time." But in our conversations,
wait. He said he was talking about your hair. He said, "Do you need those things?" Talking about your
yeah.
What need?
Yeah, he said, okay. He said, "Do you need those things?" And I said, "Well, that's my hair. It's my dreadlocks." Oh, Chris. And so we did have a back and forth where we actually found that we had a lot of great conversations on opposing sides of the political spectrum, but we engaged greatly in politics, even though we had differences of opinion. And he definitely wanted me to be able to see more of the business sides of things. My dad, who raised me, he was a pastor and a missionary. And so he is more about, here's love and, here's where your vocation might come and so forth. So they were very different gentlemen. And up until his death, that was part of our thing. Now, my biological mother, I came to her door, and my son at the time was about 3 or 4, and I came to her door. This was our first time meeting, and I was only 2 years older than you. I was about 28, about that time when I met her first time, 27, 28, and came to her door and knocked, and she came to the door and said, "Well, isn't this a lovely sight?" And we came in and had coffee with my son. And for years now, I can say that it has been such a benefit because she and I, we talk consistently. She is like my best friend. She's no holds barred, unfiltered. And with her siblings, my uncles and aunt, we have maintained a relationship for over 20 some odd years. So it has been a blessing.
That's
and as far as, now I don't have the comedy coping mechanism you did. For me, a big part of it was I just wanted to love family. And so that I felt so blessed to have been able to have my parents who raised me and have met my biological parents as well. Now, I'm curious in sharing that portion of my story for you. Do you notice that in your comedy, do you find it's more similar to the parents who raised you, or that you mentioned your biological mother? Is it more similar to how she comes across as a person?
I think it's more about how she comes across as a person. My adoptive mother, she just started getting a growth in her body called a funny bone. She has been the most serious and one of the most difficult people I think I've ever been around in my younger years. But the older she gets, the funnier she gets, and that allows me to be more open and witty and just kind of loose with her, which I love. We have a very great relationship. My biological mother, like I said, when I first met her, it was just like looking in a spiritual mirror. I mean, of course, some of the physical stuff was there, but such easy conversation. We talked about smoking weed. I was like, okay, all right, so it was easy conversation. She's a very creative person too. So I can definitely see I got just kind of the ease of just quick-wittedness and just flowing in the conversation from her. I don't know about my biological father and kind of what his personality was. I do know some things about him, that he was a star athlete in football, track, and baseball, I think. Interestingly enough, that we're having this conversation about him because I have a daughter, okay, who's 19. And in the past year and a half, she went on 23andMe. Again, my children have kind of continued to pursue that just identity journey. They're a lot more solid than I am in some areas, and they didn't have the struggles that I did, but they went on 23andMe, and my biological half sister on my father's side reached out to her and connected. Interestingly enough, my daughter goes to school in Chicago, which is where my biological father lives, and they now have a relationship. She hangs out at his house with his wife and my biological half sister. So it's just kind of funny how the universe just kind of play. I've never met him. I've never met him personally in person. So
I'm taking some notes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've never met him in person, but my daughter has. And like I said, and she even calls him grandpa. She has chosen to kind of embrace that, her biological connection, Me, I kind of got to a stage where I'm not saying I wouldn't be open to have a relationship with him, but There was a time where I felt like I really needed that and pursued it, and then to get let down or to get turned away or whatever the reasons or excuses were. I had to work through that myself, kind of find myself. So I'm not craving it in the same way. It's not as important to me. I've become, like I said earlier, I'm living as a whole person now. I don't feel like I have too many of those same questions anymore because,
Same here.
yeah, those are things I had to find just within myself about me and who I am and who I'm choosing to be. Biology can play a part in it, but it doesn't have to determine or decide who you are. Unless,
Now, have you taken?
Yeah, go ahead.
My apologies. My apologies. We continue.
No, I was going to crack a joke, so let's just keep. There'll be other opportunities. Let's just. Again, it just happens, man. It's just like
that's the gift. That is the gift. That is the gift. I will, since we're along those lines, in your first, because I'm understanding you do stand up as well, correct? Or is it just comedic acting?
I do stand up as well. I do stand up.
So in your stand up routine, do you incorporate some of your experiences as an adopted person and your journey in finding your biological parents? Does that come into play?
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Guru. I have not. I think about it.
It's a sensitive kind of area.
Yeah. Again, and some of what comedy is about for me is deflection. I'm a very self-deprecating in my comedy. I don't really pick on other people. I like to talk shit about myself. And again, for me, some of that comes from just the journey I've been on and all the questions I had and how much I would beat myself up for not knowing this, or even maybe even being envious that other people had this connection to their biological family. But as you heal and you forgive yourself for things that you're not even necessarily responsible for. I mean, when you're a kid growing up, but forgiving myself for having the wrong perception of me, and you don't have to be adopted to do that. I feel like that's something that everybody at some point in their life needs to come to, is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for your mistakes, your humanity, for not knowing, for making the wrong decisions, and be good with who you are, where you're at. And if you're not good with where you're at, then forgive yourself for not being there, and then take the steps to become that person that you desire to be, or that you feel that you are, and be good with it, accept it, embrace it, So no, I haven't really used that too much in my comedy, but in some senses it's kind of at the core of it. And it's not a piece that I share with everybody, but I know where I kind of slip it in. And if people knew the real story, they might think about it differently, but no, but at some point I probably will. I just haven't sat down to write that kind of thing yet.
What's your writing process like?
Oh man, my writing process is just kind of all over the place. Literally a lot of my jokes will, again, they're just kind of like on the spot, being in situations, interactions, and I don't always capture my jokes in that way. And sometimes you have to rework them, to make them more digestible for the audience, because you might be there right with somebody in that situation and they might not get the context if you explained it on stage, so you have to work it in a way where you can present the subject matter, put yourself in it, put somebody else in it, add a little fluff or a little more script to it, to make it actually sound funny to an audience. Like if you were right there when it happened, you'd be cracking up. But if I was just telling you about what happened, you might not get it. So you have to kind of go roundabout and tell it in a way where it's broad enough, but personal enough where people can get it. But another thing too, a lot of jokes come to me when I'm like almost asleep, man. It's so weird. Like I'll just be like when I'm like relaxed, like about to go to sleep. I, I wake up laughing sometimes, and I'll get up and I'll write down my jokes. What was funny to me, you know? And again, you just kind of have to work it in a way because if you're going to be giving it to an audience, um, so it's kind of all over the place. Like I can draw humor from anywhere, you know.
Well, how do you know what makes you laugh? How do you know a joke that makes you laugh? So you go to sleep and you hear this joke. What what triggers you to include it as a part of your routine? Is it that you saw the joke in your mind when you were sleeping and it made you laugh, or is it you saw the timing of the way a joke came? What tells you that yes, I'm going to include this in my routine?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question.
And
Um,
I know some comedians say they just do the test out when they go on stage and they see what's funny, and then that's how they decide to rewrite it or not. And I'm always curious about the creative's artistic method. So for you, if you thought about it for a second.
um, I test a lot of my jokes on people close to me. You know, I test my jokes on my mom. If she laughs, I know I've got a winner. Because again, making her laugh over the years has been like slamming my head into a brick wall. It's just not a funny thing, you know. It's bloody. It's not going anywhere. Like, mom, don't you get it? I don't appreciate that. Oh, jeez, you know. But now, like I said, she's loosened up. But yeah, I tend to test it in circles. And it doesn't have to necessarily be people that are close to me, but I'll be out to eat, you know, and I'm very engaging. I like to talk to people, you know, find out about people. And oftentimes, if it's not a whole joke, because I mean, sometimes I do that too, but at least fragments or pieces to kind of test the reaction to or the surprise of what I said. So it's there's no real method to my madness, I guess, because I haven't gotten to the stage in my stand-up comedy where I feel like I need to do that. Again, I'm just kind of pulling from life, man, you know, and I feel like what I find funny, most people are going to find funny, which oftentimes is not the case. You know? I laugh at myself all the time, and other people are just like, mm, no. Like, and I'll be cracking up like you just don't get it. You just don't get it. So yeah, I wish I had more to tell you about like a creative process, but as a creative yourself, you know, sometimes it's not always about how we sit down and think about it, because that can be very
For sure,
stifling sometimes as a creative.
for sure,
It's when I have to sit
for
down
sure.
and think of what to write, you know. I like it when it just
Yes,
comes, you know. I
yeah,
like to capture it. So
yes. And
you
sometimes because I've had to be on the
know, I get my
stage numerous
ex-girlfriend,
times, because
you know, just capture them. If you're watching
yeah.
this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Listen, I'm glad the police found you. Anyway, all jokes. That's just a joke.
oh, oh boy. So I find that being on stage, sometimes you measure how the audience, and that sometimes gives direction, because I've had to host events in front of hundreds of people. Now, I'm not a comedian. Part of my thing had been introducing other people and being the host. And so you do have to come up with specific funny things or see how you can do that. But I always see the artistry of comedy. Sometimes you fly by the seat of your pants because you're putting out your material and garnering you're putting yourself vulnerable out there to get feedback in laughter, to know that it's working well. And I find that process very interesting, having seen some of the comedians through the years and hearing about their process. So I definitely understand when you're saying that. Now, are there comedians that have inspired you we'd be surprised that you were inspired by?
Oh, jeez. That's a good question.
Because we have the greats. Obviously, we have Richard, we have Dave Chappelle, we have George Carlin. There's numerous comedians for sure, but someone your audience members might be surprised that you actually have gotten some good insight into your own comedy.
Um, as far as like insight or where I draw from, honestly, like I can't say there's anyone like specific because I admire so many comedians, and I admire comedians in general because again I'm not like a huge comedian as far as on stage, or might I'm not even like the most recognizable name. So a lot of what I do is continue to observe in comedy. uh Bill Burr, I really like Bill Burr. Bill Burr is, I feel like, a great comedian. Just he's
Absolutely, I agree.
sarcastic, situational. You know, he talks a lot about just situations like whether it's with his wife or like people he's run into. I really enjoy him. Um, my big inspiration coming out here is Alex Thomas. Now, a lot of people are like, who's Alex Thomas? You know Alex Thomas, but maybe you don't know him unless you're like circulating the comedy scene. He's an actor. He's pretty famous. Have you seen the movie Baps? Have
Yes.
you seen Have you
Yes.
seen Players Club?
Yes.
He was on the Wayne Show. He also was a co-writer for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for a number of years. But I met Alex Thomas at the Laugh Factory when I was just visiting out here. And the way, first of all, I just thought he was hilarious. I've always thought he was hilarious. But when I met him and he engaged with me, that was so inspirational for me because you don't always get to meet comedians. You know, you don't always get to meet comedians face to face where they shake your hand. Sometimes it's the nature of the venue and people don't always want to be bothered. I respect that. That's fine. But since then, I've gotten a chance to work with him. And such a humble guy, you know, it's just, he's humble. He's hilarious. He's regular and consistent in what he does. He's constantly still doing acting, and you know he's doing comedy at the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, and just all over the place, all over the country. So when somebody like that takes out the time, I mean, I've got his phone number on my phone. I'm not bragging about it, but that to me is so meaningful. To be able to connect with somebody that has that level of success, that is continuing to be successful, you know, and has time for you, has real conversation with you, has advice, you know. And if I ever have a show, I had him scheduled for a show one time. Unfortunately, it got canceled by the venue, but he was always like, man, anytime you're ready to have me back, let me know. You know, you've got my number, just text me. So that for me is part of my inspiration about being out here. Again, meeting just good people with, you know, elevated spirits and who know themselves. And sorry about the plane going by. But yeah. So Alex Thomas, of course, Dave Chappelle is one of my favorites.
So are we kind of naming your Mount Rushmore? Is this kind of your Mount Rushmore of comedians?
I would say so. I would say so. Love Tiffany Haddish. You know, I liked her more in her earlier years. I still like her now, but I still like Kevin Hart. Again, these are all names people know. Yeah, there's just a lot of Malik S. I don't know if you know who that is. Again, he's
I'm not familiar, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's pretty famous around here. He's also been on several TV shows. So it's just some of these people that also do comedic acting. They're not just doing stand up. And to me, those are kind of my inspirations, because people who can transition, because some people who go do shows are just not that funny. you know, because either they're not writing the script or just the energy or the situations aren't there where they can just be free to be witty and just come off of what they know, you know. Bernie Mac was another one I loved.
Oh, great, great,
Rest in
great.
power, Bernie
Esteemed
Mac.
man.
Man, fantastic. Chris Tucker when he
Absolutely,
first
brother.
got started, you
Oh,
know. Yeah,
oh
you
yeah,
know, it's nice to see him coming back now after he
for
kind of
sure.
like shied away from the industry, and I don't blame him. But yeah, there's so many people that I just respect and love out here and that are continuing to do their thing and being representative also of black excellence. And not all my
Absolutely.
comedians I love, like obviously Bill Burr is not, you know, black, but he wrote for the Chappelle show, you know, and he was on
And
the show.
his wife is black
His
also.
wife is black, right? So
Yeah.
technically, I'm saying he's black. You know, I mean, technically, you know, Bill Burr black. You know, Bill Black Burr, Black Bill Burr. However you want, BB. You know, he a black man. If he ate the black pussy, he a black man. He a black man. You are what you eat. You are what you eat, right? Let me stop. Let me stop. I hope, Bill, if you see this, you know it's true. You know it's true. My brother.
um, considering your humor kind of expands the perimeters. The political climate has been really something else this year. So, do you find humor in some of the politics of what's going on?
Listen to me, Seth Guru. Listen to me very closely. The reason why I wrote the executive order that there's only two genders, man and woman, is because I don't want to start grabbing pussies again and reaching out to
No,
get
no,
a handful of balls. I can't be having a handful of balls, only my own balls in my hand. So that's why there's only two genders, male and female. I like to grab pussies, not balls.
I don't think we can say that word.
No,
I
no,
don't think,
no.
no, I don't think we can say that word.
Let's edit that. Sorry. You asked, you know. Do I find humor in this political man? I better. Either you
No.
find humor in what's going on right now, or you cry, or you want to fight somebody.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again,
Now, is that somewhat included in some of your stand-up routines?
that joke I just told you, I did that in a stand-up routine. Yeah. Yes, I did. I did.
And
And
so
the sniper over there is he's
no, Chris.
we told you, man.
No,
We told you. We're gonna wait till the podcast is done because we don't want this live, but we're taking you out, you know.
no.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I do some political humor, but I tend to shy away from it. I mean, there's so many people that are doing political humor that are probably so much better at it than I am, and I'll throw something in like that, you know. But I don't focus on that. Like I'm not really a political humorist, but I could be. It's just not my style right now. It's just not what my mind's on, you know.
Yes.
I just like a lot of self-deprecating stuff, and I just talk about and just people and just the bullshit that we do, you know.
Yes.
We just do some bullshit. So, you know,
Yeah.
I like to call it out, talk about it, make light of it. So yeah, that's how I think.
What was your first experience where you were on stage and you felt you completely killed it? It was just awesome. You felt so good. How long ago was that? And describe that experience.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
And remember, we're watching our words.
Right. I apologize. I didn't read the disclaimer before or the rules. Pardon me. Forgive me, audience. I'm really not ratchet-minded or mouthed. I'm gonna be honest. It was in Minneapolis. I did a show, and it was one of my first big shows. And a friend of mine had brought me on. Adrian Washington, who is another comedian that tours around, but he's from Minneapolis, like I am, and uh, I was fortunate to be invited to do a show with him, and the audience just loved me, which it was surprising to me. I didn't expect the reaction that I got, but I got a standing ovation. They actually brought me back out for another like 3 minutes just to kind of like address, and I did some crowd work and stuff. I don't think I have had that kind of reaction since, but again, to be fair, I have not pursued stand up in the way that I really want to yet. I've done a lot of more promoting and supporting of other comedians because I feel that's very necessary too. There's a real need to create a healthy stage out here, especially just kind of like with the way Hollywood has changed.
When you say change, what do you mean?
I mean,
With
well, you look at stuff like the Me Too movement, you know, and then COVID happened, and I mean, you got Harvey Weinstein's out here, and all these things that have kind of been exposed and blown up about the realities that are taking place in the culture, and it's gotten the kind of attention and momentum where people are demanding change for a lot of these things. So there's just been it's been kind of, when I say in a decline, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that the glory of Hollywood isn't what it once was. That kind of elite closed door thing, it's still there. But again, with a lot of the exposure and the toxicity that's been like revealed, people are now like, okay, we accept as a culture that's not okay. So how do we rebuild and make it great again? How do we make it? I don't mean it. How do we make Hollywood great again? Maha. Make Hollywood great again. No, that's not Maha, but that's whatever. Anyway, that acronym didn't work. Let's scratch that. Let's edit that out. But do you know what I mean? Like I just feel like
I do. It's a different era. It's very much a different era. I think we've grown into this place where there needs to be a little more self-correction, or a little loosening of where we've painted ourselves into a corner to some degree, I feel, because in the pursuit of justice for some of the women that have suffered, or young men who've endured certain things within Hollywood, we've done right to try and get validation for some of the injustices. But I think that the change has really taken away some of the mystique and the perceived classiness, the perceived classiness of that elite nature of Hollywood, right, and the elite nature of getting into those fields and finding success. And I also must say, I think the proliferation of social media has added to easy, accessible stardom, which I think also has diminished some of the validation of that elite class of Hollywood as well. And it's no fault to social media actors and or comedians. It's just that how things have evolved, and I think we have to find a new way to bring some of that mystique back. And I think I think that's added to it. Now, so with your comedy and stand-up, your acting is a big part of your life as well. Do you go into acting?
I do.
Please,
I do acting. Right now, I do a lot of background work. I'm not even going to lie, Guru. I have not pursued, again, with some of the toxicity before I came out here. I was nervous about that. Like I've done principal acting in Minneapolis. I've done stand-up comedy in Minneapolis. I used to do commercials in Minneapolis. I've been in several short films and a feature length, and it was different there. coming out here again, it's like being a big fish in an ocean, you know. I was a big fish in a small pond there, but now I'm a big fish in an ocean with, you know, bigger fish and sharks, you know, and electric eels. And um, so I haven't pursued it as much as I wanted to until I was able to get a sense of where I was at and what I was doing. So a lot of being out here, what started for me was doing event production, like producing events, especially for
Yes.
like independents and people who are on the rise and creating those healthy avenues and stages. So that's really been a lot of what I've done since I've been out here. Um,
So
which
that's
is
a big part of a portion of your career as well, event production.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Again, because I feel like there's a lot of us that are lacking. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with that are just so grateful because I'm not trying to sleep with them, or I actually pay them when I say I'm going to, or that I pay them at all. You know, a lot of people are out here doing work for free, and I get it. And that's another thing that you were talking about in terms of how social media is just kind of like blasted people off into the spotlight. Whereas a lot of people who have lived out here and been out here, man, they've had to grind. They have had
Oh,
to grind and pay their dues and, and be under somebody else for a number of years or be behind the scenes until they got a chance to come out and do something. Um, so there is a difference in even how that goes. Like I was watching a video, a stand-up comedian versus a TikTok comedian, and they were kind of going back and forth and asking the audience like, well, who's funnier, who's more witty, or who resonates with you more, because there is a difference. And that's another
absolutely.
thing that I do. I utilize social media. I do comedic reels, you know. I kind of prefer that in some ways, because I can take my time with it. Nobody's like, I mean, yeah, you can get criticized in comments and things like that. And not that I'm afraid of criticism, but I'm saying like it allows me a quicker outlet to express my comedic ideas and what I want to do and what I want to say. Um
Absolutely.
yeah, so doing the stand up, it's a little bit slower road, and I have opportunities, but again, I'm not pursuing it as hard as I could or as I necessarily want to. I'm kind of biding my time, and I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I know as funny as you are, and it was difficult, even a challenge to get through some of this interview because the humor just radiates off of you. And pre our interview, you just have a sense of timing that is uncanny, and it just tickles my funny bone completely. Absolutely. I am curious if there was a young person, a young man who is thinking to get into the comedy world. What would be your best piece of advice?
My best piece of advice is start hanging around other comedians. Um, Definitely work on your stuff all the time and don't be discouraged. If something doesn't hit, keep working at it. Rewrite it, rework it. Um, Never give up on yourself. Um, and don't be reluctant or hesitant or too proud to go on the smallest stages for no pay to work your craft, to start your craft. I literally threw a show one night, and I think it was storming in LA, and I had done all this promotion and this and that, and yeah, I was doing some of the comedy myself, but I had some other bigger comedians that were coming to perform. Man, when I tell you that audience was so scarce, it was really disappointing at first, but the comedians that were there, not only did I pay them for showing up, they were like, no, you don't have to pay us, man. There's nobody here. I was like, but I said I would do that. But we loved it because we had such a night just working our material and working through our material. You can find value in that. Like, use every opportunity that you have to work your material, to perfect your craft, and perfect what you're doing. But I encourage, if you're an up and coming comedian, do go be around other comedians. Study the comedians that you like. Study some of them that you're not even familiar with or that you don't like. But just keep pursuing it. Keep working your craft. Keep writing your stuff down. Protect your joke books. You know, people will steal your stuff out here. They really will. You know, yeah, that would be what I say. Just, you know, believe in yourself. If you feel like you are a comedian, don't let anybody discourage you from that. Not everybody's going to get you all the time, and there's going to be times where you hear crickets in the audience, but don't let that be an indication of your lack of ability to perform or to be funny or to be comedic. Sometimes you just got to know your audience and just expand and learn how to work your material in a way that you can reach your audience. That is what I would say.
I think that's a great piece of advice, and where we would end off with, where can people learn more about your comedy, learn about your production, event planning, and learn about your acting skill? If they just want to get in contact with you, where would you like people to hear or reach out to you at?
Sure. The best place to get in contact with me would probably be on Instagram. That's a good way to get in contact with me. So my Instagram is Christopher, ChristopherHer. I'm surprised you're not having it pop up on the screen. Come on, Gorilla, let's go. That's not here. Like,
that's coming down the road. That's coming down the road.
Instagram right now. It's Christopher _Akeem. So you see my name right there. Just put 2 double underscores, or put 2 underscores in between Christopher and Akeem. I'm at Christopher Akeem on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok at Christopher.Akeem. So no underscore on TikTok. It's their dot in between the R and the A. Yeah, but I'm out here. I'm circulating out here. You want to find me? And I'm in Hollywood, West Hollywood, and I'm in Los Angeles area. And if anything, you can ask this man. And
absolutely, it will be my pleasure. I want people to get to know the light that you radiate to me, the warmth, the humor that has me in stitches quite often when we have spoken. And I definitely want to advocate for anyone to get in contact with this genius of a comedian and an actor. Makers Bar audience, we want to truly thank Christopher Akeem for being with us today. It truly was an honor, my good brother. Thank you so much for taking out time to spend with us today.
I feel so honored to be on your show and to know you, and please keep doing what you're doing, the way you're elevating the culture and showing us what it means to not only be connected, but to be intelligent and have real conversations. I really appreciate that about you, brother. Thank you so much.
It's truly my pleasure. I received that and I thank you. Well, Makers Bar audience, you know, one of the things I like to say is the revolution that we want is the Lovolution, a revolution of love. Let's continue to revolt and bring about more love in our country, in our society, in our communities, and in our world. Amen. Peace be unto you, and amen. And peace be unto your audience. Thank you so much for joining us. Christopher Akeem, thank you so much, my good brother. I can't wait till we see each other again, person to person. Definitely. Thank you for spending time with us today. It has been an extreme delight and a pleasure, and funny as anything. And I'm just looking forward to staying in contact with you, my good man.
Thank you, my brother. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Yes, we will. Christopher Akeem, ladies and gentlemen, Makers Bar. Peace, and we'll see you next time.
God bless.
Christopher, you had me rolling, dude.
Sorry.